Yo. So I've been trying to start this video for a while, but like I don't know how to start or what to specifically talk about. There's a couple things I want to talk about, so might as well just click record and see how it goes. But the last thing on my mind that I wanted to talk about was how I think positivity is wrong and how negativity is wrong. I think both of them are wrong and unrealistic. So let's go with positivity. Positivity is biased towards the positive aspects of, let's say, life or something. Like, let's say, I don't know, let's say you're positive about, I don't know, your job. That would be like, oh yeah, it provides money for food and housing, if it does even these days. And it allows me to buy things I like. If you were like negatively biased, you would be like, oh, I'm being exploited, it takes too much time, and you're gonna be negative about it. But if you're just being real, there's both the positive and the negative, right? Isn't there? So being only positive and ignoring the negative is biased and unrealistic. It's not clear seeing. Being only negative and ignoring the positive is biased and unrealistic, and it's not clear seeing. So my first point I was trying to make is that like, especially these days, there's a lot more negative stuff to talk about than positive stuff, I'd say. At least from my perspective, from how I've experienced things and from what I've examined, without trying to be biased. Of course, I'm not gonna say you're always biased, because there's also a way you can observe your biases, where like, if you're really mindful of how you investigate things, you can sort of see where you're biased, and that's part of your investigation. So I can't claim that your investigation always has to be biased if you account for the biases. So, and you can say you can never account for all biases. Yeah, because your biases can shape what you perceive. I agree with that. But you can train your mind to be more and more aware of bias and less biased, and that does lead to more clarity on things, I would say. Like, you can't just infinitely say nothing can be done about it. It can. You can cultivate awareness of your biases. You can... Where the hell did I wind up in? 1 second. You can cultivate awareness of your biases. You can cultivate clarity. You can investigate deeply to where you have more information, So I wouldn't say it's just purely you can't do anything about it. Let's see if I got any ticks. None. So yeah, my first point was that I don't agree with just be positive, look at life positively, because that's a biased view. That's not seeing things as they are. That's not really bringing you any clarity about the situation if you're just biased towards the positive things. And that's why I don't agree with overly positive and cheerful people. As pleasant as they might be, as much good vibes as they might have, a lot of it can be based on their current experience of life, as in they might have pleasant, stable seeming conditions. But if you really look at things as they're happening, at least right now in the world, and just in general as how things are, like just your body, for example, you can get sick, you're aging, you're dying. That's not a positive thing. People like to spin this, oh, because we die, that makes every moment more important, right? That's the positivity I'm talking about. No, bro, like death is not a positive thing. That's not a fun thing. Dying's not fun. Being sick is not fun. Like, that's not true, and your body's always liable to that, and you should be aware of that, for example, without like freaking out about it. I'm not a fan of also like freaking out about negative stuff. I'm just saying, like, ignoring the negative stuff or trying to poetically spin it into something positive only distorts the clarity of your perception and how you see things. So yeah, that's one point I was trying to make, I guess. The second point is a little bit of a observation about things happening right now in the world. I've been like crunching some numbers in my free time, and I think it's pretty messed up, the system right now. It's always been, but like, it's funny because when I was a kid, I thought, oh, I'm gonna do all these things when I grow up and have a family and gonna become whatever I want to be. But now that I'm not old, like, don't get me wrong, but like, the older I get, the more I investigate, I don't know, the market or jobs or politics or whatever. And I'm not gonna get into anything specific, but it's just like, wow, bro, it's like, it's cooked, man. How much abundance there is, and how concentrated it is, and how much artificial scarcity there is, and how exploitative everything is, and like how, I have this quote. It's like, and it's not from anyone, it's just I thought about it, and it was like, instead of raising the floor, right, of our society, like trying to make the person that's worse off better off, instead of focusing on that, like extensively focusing on that, society is more focused on maintaining the infinite ceiling. Like, they'd rather have the billionaire get their 101st billion than the impoverished person getting a home. Like, it's kind of cursed. It's like, it's not gonna get better. Like, the average person has become twice as poor, even in the developed world. Like, their purchasing power has decreased twofold, while the average rich person has become twice as rich. And that's me really oversimplifying it, but like, the numbers are not in our favor. Like, if this keeps happening, it's just gonna keep getting worse and worse. So like, yeah, the financial side of things is very bad, and I'm positive everyone's aware of this. Like, I'm sure everyone's aware of this, and I'm happy right now. I got food and I have somewhere to live and clean water, but it's got me questioning how long that's gonna last and how dependent I personally am on this system to sustain this body, to sustain myself, or on this climate. Like, climate change. Recently there's been this heat waves in Europe, and like, haven't been able to sleep well because it's been so hot, and it's got me thinking, wow, I'm so dependent on the climate being hospitable to me that like, if climate changes, like, even if I go forth and become a monastic, which I plan to do, well, it's not gonna change the fact that the climate is kind of unhospitable, is it? So that's another thing, like, which also brings me to, I've been hearing more talks on this whole antinatalism thing, and I'm not antinatalist, I'm Buddhist, but the Buddha is often labeled as an antinatalist because people misunderstand his teachings because they don't investigate them thoroughly enough, right? But antinatalism, so first, I'm not going to talk about antinatalism. I'm just going to talk about the mindset I see a lot of younger people in my generation have. It's like, to simplify it, to dumb it down, the world sucks. Why birth another being voluntarily into this world? It sucks. People don't hate kids. A lot of my friends I know want a family, and the relationships are bad. People can't get a relationship to be stable. Friendships are not stable because of like social media. People are so distracted. People aren't paying attention to each other. They aren't managing relationships as they should be managed. They're not putting in the effort, is what I mean. And but they still crave them. So the relationship side of things is kind of breaking down. So not only are people not able to have stable relationships, but even if they do, even if they want kids, they can't afford kids. Like people be working full-time jobs and they can't afford to move out. Like, and everybody knows this. I'm just echoing things everybody knows at this point. So they can't dream of owning a home. Like, how are they gonna support a kid? That's impossible. It doesn't make logical sense. Like I'm sorry, but like, if a kid is an economical burden you can't afford, then it's not even smart to have a kid. And if the world sucks, you don't want the kid to be in a world that sucks. And like, if you can't even find a stable relationship, you don't want a kid with someone you can't have a stable relationship with. So like, the odds are stacked against everyone right now for having kids, moving out, having a family. The average age of moving out is going up. And I'm not being a doomer, like I said. Like, do I seem bothered by it, or do I just seem lucid by it? Like I said, I'm not for the positivity stuff. Like, you got to see the negative stuff too. And then like the wisdom is like not chasing the positive and not being averse towards the negative. Like, I'm just naming things how they are. I'm not saying I'm like particularly shaken up about it. I'm just knowing how things are is beneficial to inform how you should act and make choices, right? So I'm just explaining why people aren't having kids from what I've personally observed. That's what I think. So I'm trying to preserve truth here. I'm not saying that is the absolute truth. I'm not saying I have all the information. You know, I do look at numbers. I do talk to people. I work with people. I work in service. I talk with friends. I talk with everyone I know. I just ask them stuff. I investigate, because I'm more of an investigative person, especially when it comes to Dhamma. But right now I'm talking more generally. So from what I've seen, like, it's just like people aren't gonna have kids. It's just like, and that brings me to antinatalism, which is like, to simplify it. I forgot the guy's name who's made it up, the founder. But the argument goes something like, existence has a lot of suffering, more suffering than pleasure even. Pleasure depends on existence, and suffering is always bad, and pleasure is neutral. And therefore non-existence means no suffering, and existence means suffering. So non-existence is preferable to existence. And I'm sure I butchered it. I'm sure it can be expressed more nuanced than I did, because I am not deeply familiar with the subject. I've just heard about it recently and watched a couple YouTube videos, and I've heard people adopt this. And yeah, antinatalism is basically, as I understand it, in as common terms as I can put it, life is full of suffering. Pleasure is relatively neutral. Not suffering is preferable to suffering. So non-existence is preferable to existence, because pleasure requires existence to even be desired or worth anything, right? And the Buddha often gets called an antinatalist in modern times, because he also spoke against birth. But see, that this is where the nuance gets lost, because in the Buddha's Dhamma, reincarnation is indispensable. Like, he didn't talk about, because antinatalists like don't give birth, right? Some in the past, I think even killed themselves. I probably shouldn't have said that, because like, I don't know, YouTube probably notices these things. I don't know. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is that's not how the Buddha describes ending birth, old age, sickness, and death. Not even close. In fact, he even stated that a human birth is surprisingly fortunate, especially a human birth in a time where his teaching is established. Like, right now, if a human was born right now, he comes to an age where he can come into contact with the Buddha's teaching. So being born as a human right now is not the worst thing that can happen. It's actually really fortunate, because being a human at the time where Buddha's teaching is available is exceptionally rare. And reincarnation makes it to where, like, even if your life ends, or even if you weren't born here, right, because of the past causes for becoming, mainly craving, craving for the senses and their objects, aversion, means that, like, with death or not being born here, rebirth still occurs. So, not giving birth, or game ending yourself isn't really a solution to existential suffering in the Buddhist sense. That's why it's not antinatalist, because it's not anti-birth. Yes, monks are required to be celibate, but that's not for the purpose of antinatalism, but it's for abandoning sexual desire, because sexual desire is a form of mental bondage. It's a form of sensual desire, right? And it's one of the 10 fetters, kama raga, the sensual desire. So it's not for the purposes of antinatalism, but it is for the purposes of abandoning the causes for renewed becoming, which sounds similar, but it's not if you count in reincarnation, right, and the whole dependent origination of becoming, you know. So it's not the same thing. It's much more nuanced, much more complex, requires much more investigation to understand, and should not be just bunched up with antinatalism. And yeah, those were kind of my points for this video. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to ask me anything about the Dhamma, in the comments below, I will make a video to answer that, because like why I haven't been making videos lately is because, well, I've been practicing the Dhamma, I've been reading the Nikayas, and like this thing's really complex. This thing's like, the more I understand, the more I practice it, the less I want to talk about it, because I don't want to accidentally add any distortions to it. And I'm sure I have added many distortions to it. Even if I understood correctly, I could just, speaking it incorrectly could be distorting what the Buddha was saying. And because I don't have someone directly to talk to when I say these things, or always something to reply to, you know, it's not always the perfect way to transmit Dhamma. So I'm doing my best. But yeah, I do practice it. I do read the Nikayas. I do spend my time investigating what the Buddha said should be investigated, and contemplating what should be contemplated, and developing what should be developed, and abandoning what should be abandoned, you know. So if you have any questions about the Dhamma, you know, from the sutras or whatever, I can answer them in a future video. If you have any specific sutras in mind, you can tell me which sutra. I'll read it, I'll go over it, whatever. And yeah, see you in another video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye. Oh, quick addition also. Before, I forgot to add, and I was gonna talk about this. When I said antinatalism says non-existence is preferable to existence, where the Buddha also differs is he calls those that prefer non-existence annihilationists, and those that prefer eternal existence eternalists. And Nibbana, the final goal of Buddhism, is neither existence nor non-existence. It cannot be defined by those terms, because it is a cessation of a process that generates suffering. So it is a cessation, not non-existence, right? That's not the same. Non-existence would imply something permanently existing was annihilated, right? Which is not true. And existence would imply that something actually existed, something substantial, not something always changing. So it's the idea of a causal process, not non-existence, which is again why Buddha is not antinatalist, because he's not arguing non-existence is better than existence. He's arguing the unconditioned is more reliable as a refuge than the ever-changing, impermanent, not self conditioned is, because it is always changing and no stable refuge can be secured, whereas the unconditioned does not arise, therefore does not change, right? That doesn't mean something eternal, it just means it's unconditioned instead of conditioned. That's kind of what I wanted to add real quick. See ya.